If you are feeling overwhelmed by what is happening in the world right now, you are certainly not alone. And this is a message that I hope will empower you and inspire you with knowing what to do next. Because I think a lot of the messaging out there is just, you can only control what you can control. Stop doom scrolling. You're overthinking it. Just think of what's in your life. But it comes to a point where it's like, yeah, but it's not really fixing the problem. Like, it's not actually reducing my general anxiety. And that's because regardless of your mental relationship with what's going on, it's still going to impact you. It will impact you. And whether you like it or not, there will be interweaving within different parts of your life. But I promise this is a positive message. So stay with me, my friend, because I want to help you to find the meaning. How do you find the meaning in this? How do you find purpose? How do you find resilience? And what's your part? What is your part to play in this, the greatest drama of human society? So let's start with understanding like what is going on, like this complete clusterfuck of the world, right? I think the two things that are happening in parallel is we are so much more aware than we were even 10 years ago of everything. So we're aware of the quality of our food and what's actually in our food, like that whole agribusiness. What are the harsh chemicals that are being put in our food? We're learning more about the emotions in the body and how emotions interplay with disease. We're understanding politics a bit more. We're understanding that there are games being played that are much more sinister than the lies that we were told just a generation ago, 2 generations ago, to justify massive war. And we're paying for it. We're paying for war with our tax, like our taxable income, and we're also paying for it with the petrol prices going up, whether we agree with it or not. So we're so much more aware and we're not as easily manipulated. And I think this is challenging because we haven't found the answers yet. We know that something's wrong, but we don't have the rebuilding, the resolution yet. So that's where there's a lot of overwhelm, and we're feeling a lot on our plate. We're feeling a lot on our shoulders as individuals. The other thing that we're seeing is absolute moral decay. We are seeing things happening right before our eyes that would not have happened 1 or 2 generations ago, that people would not have gotten away with. And it's just completely overwhelming to think that things could be possible or things would happen that were so unlawful before and people were getting away with it, right? So these two, both the awareness and the moral decay happening at rapid speed, and it's a collapse. It is a collapse of the world as we know it, and it's a collapse of all the systems and what was life about and how did things work? Like what does our fiscal system look like? What does the basics of how our monetary system looks like? What's the point of getting an education and getting into the workforce when your degree means nothing? Like everything's kind of falling apart. But I think what is so special about our generation is that we are here at this time on Earth, whatever generation you are, like whatever age you are, but we are all here at this time because we're the rebels. We're the rebels. We're the ones who are going to rebuild the new systems. That's why we're here. We are not people. You are not someone who can easily be manipulated or controlled, or you'll just believe anything that you're told. You, my friend, are someone who has deep discernment. You have wisdom. That's why you're recognizing something's not right. And we're seeing things and we're questioning things. We're talking about things on social media that we didn't talk about culturally 1 or 2 generations ago. And we never challenged things just a generation ago. We just accepted it as it is. Now we're at a point where we can look at something and the media can tell us a story, all the traditional media that's still trying to run the show. And we on social media are having a whole different conversation and going, no, this is actually what the truth is. We know what's really going on. And that is such a beautiful thing about our generation, because we cannot be manipulated or controlled. And you have discernment, you have deep wisdom, and you are looking at things saying, well, that's not right. That doesn't work. And I think one of the challenges we have when we're sitting in this place, especially if you are an empath, if you are someone who deeply cares about others, and I don't like the word sensitive. I just think it's more awareness. You're aware of the collective pain. A lot of the advice that you're probably being told is, well, you can only control what you can control. And, it's all meant to happen. It's all good. It was the divine destiny. But it doesn't really give us closure, does it? Because we're struggling to find like our anchor in our life. How do you find an anchor when your rent is going up every time you sign a lease, when the cost of food is constantly going up, even though the cost of production hasn't changed? And all of the social fabric has collapsed. Like it collapsed and then it moved to social media, and our social media is collapsed and we have nowhere to go. We don't know how to find each other again. And so we're kind of finding our little like satellite friendships, relationships, but they're very fragmented. So the advice of just focus on your life or focus on yourself doesn't work, because you will still be impacted by the collapse of everything around you. It's like saying to someone who's standing in a pile of rubble, it's all in your head. Or like, you can only control what you can control, and you're standing there going, well, I didn't ask for this. Like, what the hell? And I think that's why it's so good for you to hear this message, because there's another path. There's another path, and this path is a path that just makes so much sense of everything. So we are the generation that will question everything, that will challenge things, that are witnessing the collapse and the power dynamics, trying to hold on to their power, and it's like sand falling between their fingers. So this is also the time of the rebuilding, because as something collapses, there is the perfect time for regeneration and rebuilding. And that means that every single one of us on earth right now, 2026, we have both an opportunity and a responsibility to rebuild Earth, to rebuild all of the systems, to be part of the regeneration of humanity, to bring back ancient wisdom, and to also understand, well, what does the new world look like? What is our moral compass? What are the things we're going to shed from our current world and from ancient times, and say, well, that's not part of the new future of humanity. So we're part of the rebuilding. And I think that's actually a really exciting time, because that's where you can start to focus your energy. Because if you just picked one thing, that was your contribution, your way of making an impact on the world, a positive one, the whole world would change. If every single person picked one thing that will build a new earth, the whole world would change within a generation. What is killing that is apathy. It is a belief that you don't have power, you don't have influence, or you can only control what you can control, or you're trying to put your energy into something that you can't directly influence. And then you become overwhelmed and emotionally exhausted, and then you just face plant. So what we need as each of us is to think of one thing that you can put your heart and soul energy into, that's part of building the new world. And that can be something you do an hour a week. It could be a full-time gig. It just depends on your circumstances, but it needs to be something that you regularly invest your time in. And what happens when we start to kind of get out of our own heads and come back to the collective, we actually build an incredible spiritual force in the world. And this spiritual force regenerates the earth. It creates a magnetism. It's like an exponential growth of magnetism, of spiritual renewal in the world that will propel and accelerate the rebuilding of all of our systems, our political, economic, social, legal, monetary, everything. Everything will be rebuilt at a rapid rate, because the power of spirit is so much greater than the power of the physical world. And that's when you start to play with the magic. So I want to read a little quote that I think helps explain this concept. It's from the writings of Baha'u'llah, and I love his writings because they just give so much meaning to life, and they help me to understand what's happening in the world, and they just fill up my heart. So I love his writings. And he says, one righteous act is endowed with a potency that can so elevate the dust as to cause it to pass beyond the heaven of heavens. One act. And so when we think about spiritually, when we are trying to rebuild through a charity or a business that we have, or doing something in community in the collective, there is a force that we are creating that is beyond this world. And if I could give you a visual reference, it's like if you looked at Earth like from the moon, and you just saw like our beautiful planet. When someone does an action of kindness, righteousness, and service to other, remember, spirituality is always relational. It's always about other. When we do that, it actually has an explosive effect. It's like a firework, like a fireball, and it like shoots up into the sky and then shoots and wraps around the whole planet. So every kind act impacts not just the person that you are with when you are kind to them, but it impacts the entire planet. And it always has more power than harmful acts. It always does. The only reason why we are struggling in this rebuilding is because we're being told a message of basically don't do anything and just think of yourself. And that's not a very empowering place to be, because then you feel you're just subjected to everything in life. And who wants to keep the old systems that suck? Like, they suck. Who wants to keep the schooling system? Who went through school and went, wow, that really changed my life for the better and helped me to become a human and prepare for the world as an adult? No one. So why would we keep it? Why would you want to continue in a system? Apathy just keeps the system alive. Why would we do that when we have so much knowledge and research and awareness of completely new ways to run schooling systems? Like, what is the point of a classroom? Why a classroom? Why can't we just go out into the bush, like go out into the rainforest and spend the day there? And why do we have timetables as like, why do children and teens have like set times? Oh, because we're preparing them to be factory workers in the rat race. And when you realize that everything that we experience in the world today was part of a construct of some humans who generally profited off that or were able to control us from that, you realize, well, this sucks. It's so limiting. Why don't we do something better? So you have a role to play, and it's totally up to you what you choose to do, what you're passionate about, what matters to you. But what's important is that you pick one thing. Pick one thing, and that becomes your force for goodness in the world. And once you do that, my friend, I promise everything going on doesn't feel so overwhelming, because you're like, well, I'm contributing in that one way. I am making a difference in that one thing that I'm doing. And you feel like you realize that you are part of that generation, this generation that is rebuilding in you. And it doesn't matter how big the influence is. You don't have to be like the mayor of New York, who's doing some really awesome things right now. If you don't know him, go and find him on online. But you can just, it can just be something you do in the community. It can be something you do at your workplace, something you do in your neighborhood. You know, it doesn't have to have big attention to have big power, because the greatest power and influence comes from the heart. It comes from the purity and the love in the heart. That's where the force comes. So I hope this gives you purpose and meaning, and I hope that it inspires you to sit down and think, well, what's my one thing? And I promise, once you do this, you'll feel so much better. You'll feel so much better. And then you'll inspire others as well. You'll inspire others to wake up to the incredible power that they have in them as well, to make a difference and to rebuild the world. Remember, if every single person on the planet did one thing, one regular thing to build a better world, we would completely change the whole world in one generation. Instantly. I'd love to hear what your thing is. Please share it in the comments. Thank you.